Hi everyone, it's Thursday night, 9 o'clock time for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. And tonight it's all about 7's rugby, and in particular the Hamilton 7's. So we're getting going this weekend with the first leg of the new year, but the third leg, I think it is, of the series. So we're going to have a couple of, three betting experts and certainly guys who are very strong on their 7's to talk to us about that. So looking forward. And if you are in South Africa watching, you're going to probably have a few late nights. Particularly if you want to watch the ladies' games. I see they're starting sort of just before midnight tomorrow. But those I know are something that Sean Nicholas, who I'm going to introduce first, is not that keen on from a betting angle. Sean, welcome to the show. Great to have you back on to talk about the Hamilton 7's. And safe to say you're focusing on the men's draw.
Yeah, definitely. That women's, that's a lottery. Yeah, that's not good to watch. It's a lot of mistakes, and rather focus on the boys.
That's it. And you certainly, you got off to an absolute cracking start to the series from a betting point of view in both of the first two legs in Dubai and South Africa. So looking to carry on that form. And before we get into the games themselves, you had an opportunity to study a bit of form. I see there's some betting out. Yeah,
the main news is team news. That's quite critical, but the squads haven't been finalized officially. But there's a lot of the individual teams have on their media pages, they've said their squads, but there's still some that we don't quite know if they're strong or weak. But yeah, there's been a lot of time to see who's going to fire this weekend.
Excellent. It's going to be interesting. Well, let me introduce son of a punt, the two lads, Jordan and Andrew, who were on the show last week to talk about European rugby. They did very well. The Saints coming in there, guys. I'm sure, like me, you were a little bit worried when you saw the team's selection of Leon there, I think it was. And I mean, my money was down. I had no choice but to really sit tight at that point. But there was big money the other way. But at the end of the day, they came home with a thrilling finish.
No, what can I say? Up the Saints. They just seem to do the bits every weekend now. I almost want to carry on backing them, but at some stage they must falter because I think they've cleared almost every handicap for the past couple of game weeks now. It's been incredible to watch and to bet on.
Yeah, it's nice when you find something and you sort of you just follow them. I mean, I know Sean does it often in the 7's as well. He'll pick a team like a Kenya to either oppose or go for. And lots to look forward to this weekend, of course, guys. The 7's, I mean, I know you're studying hard at business school and that there, but I assume you've had time to put a bit of research in.
Yeah, we've done our research, put the books aside for the week, and yeah, we've invested some time into what will really hopefully pay some dividends.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have got a nice following there on Twitter now as well. So let's get into the action. And Sean, I'm going to start with you. Hamilton 7's, we got a new format that's being used there. If I'm not mistaken, 36 games instead of the usual 45. And what we got is the top 4 teams going straight through to the semi-finals. Had a look at the groups. Is there anyone in particular you think, or any group in particular that stands out as the toughest for you?
Yeah, I think that's, the sad thing with this, it's I made a mistake before, there's 34 games now instead of the 45. So you're losing, the cup quarterfinals, which was always, nice get out of jail for some of the teams. I mean, they could afford to have an off game in the pool play and then still get through to the cup quarters, and you could still make the final, still win the tournament. But now it's lose a game and you pretty much, that's you for the weekend. You're playing for minor honors. So it's going to be interesting to see how the pool goes. The pool play goes, how all the bigger sides smash the smaller ones, will they save themselves for the later games, just interesting to see. But the toughest group, definitely Pool B with Fiji, Argentina, Australia, Samoa. It's, Fiji are head and shoulders above the rest there, but the others, each of them on their day, they could spring an upset. So that's going to be a tough group for, I feel sorry for Samoa there because those are 3 tough games that they're going to have. They don't have any easy games in that pool.
And guys, your view about this new format. I mean, I guess as a rugby punter, you want more games, not less. So I'm guessing you're also not in favour of it.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing as well. And I think the teams and players and coaches as well are extremely disappointed. And I think they're hoping that it'll revert back to the initial format. But yeah, obviously from a betting point of view, it's disappointing because often you do get those mismatches or teams that you can back in the quarterfinals, and it gives you another shot if things don't go too well in the last game of the morning.
I think it could potentially open up an interesting angle on betting with the best ranked second team, though, because if it comes down, I think the teams that know they're going to finish second and they can't potentially top their pool, they're going to go for bullish wins against the minnow team. So from a betting angle, it could be quite lucrative in that sort of sense. But from a spectacle point of view, it's not great to cut out the quarterfinals, of course.
Yeah, interesting that there's always a betting angle to everything, isn't there? And I'm sure, just to bring you in there, I know we had some chat earlier today about things like total points and stuff like that, whether teams in a tight group will have to go and try and work on the points difference. So I guess the whole idea here is to try and stay one step ahead of the bookmakers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way it's going to be, the top four, they qualify for the cup, and then from 5 to 8, they're going to see the second teams based on how they finish. So the best performing second side will be the 5th seed, you could say, and then it'll go like that. So I mean, you could get a team same points, same weekend, but the one finishes, one's in the 5-6 playoff, one's in the 7-8 playoff. So it's going to be interesting that last day, the last game in the pool play. That'll be interesting to see how big the guys go to get that, the points they need, the differential.
Oh, just to welcome the guys on the live chat. We've obviously got the YouTube, which is where most of our audience sits, but also there on Facebook. And Dan van Straten saying in Afrikaans, dink julle die Kings gaan die Cheetahs wen? Dan, we're going to talk about that one in a little bit. I can tell you what, I'm thinking very much along those lines, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the other guys say about that. Right, let's get on to the sevens itself. And guys, let me start with you. On the outright front, I see New Zealand are favourites for this tournament with the Blitzbook a second. Have you guys spotted any outright value, or are you focusing purely on the matches?
Yeah, obviously we look into the outright value because often there's a team that you might be able to get at some nice juicy odds. However, it's tough to look past the three big guns of South Africa, Fiji, and New Zealand. And as Sean mentioned in his post on Good for the Game, Fiji are destined to meet New Zealand in the one semi, and South Africa are destined to meet France in the other semi. So the value definitely lies on the South Africa and France side. And in saying that, the 10 to 1 price on France is good. However, the way that we kind of price the games based on winners and stuff, we think that it probably should be a little bit higher, maybe around 13, 14 to 1. And therefore, we think if you just bet outright on France to win each and every game, including the final, you could probably get a slightly better price than 10 to 1. So we stayed away from an outright pick. Just because I think Fiji are strong again this weekend, and I think they'll have a lot to show. I mean, they consider this their home tournament, so I think it's going to be a tough one. I don't know who's going to win it.
Yeah, from my point of view, I don't really like to go on outright just because the big teams that I think are going to win it are such low odds. But as a fun punt, I might throw a couple handy on Kenya outright. South Africa have quite a small team, and Kenya might have been dominating them up front. So at 76 to 1, it's worth a bit of beer money on it, but I'm not the main investing is going to be coming in the matches for me.
And Jordan, I imagine the same for you. You don't often talk about the outright plays unless you spot some serious value. Our good friend Oracle Rugby, who has gone into hiding after a bit of a woeful run, but he used to go quite big on the outrights. And at one time, I remember him finding Australia at something like 25 to 1. Anything jump out for you?
Yeah, I think France are. I'm surprised you don't have your France shirt on today. I thought you're getting geared for the Six Nations. I thought you'd have that.
It doesn't fit anymore, mate.
Yeah, I think the France, based on the fact that the big three are, New Zealand, Fiji, that one of them are out. So that's you can pick one. You can do both of them. You can argue for both sides. On the day, that's going to be the final score that wins that match. That will go down to the Husa. Then you look at the South Africa side. Kenya could make the top the pool there with South Africa because it's not their best team. So France, the way that they're playing, they beat Fiji last week or in Cape Town. So they've got something this year, and that's they've just got good players, a good mix of everything. So I think them as a little dark horse is a good one.
Excellent. Well, let's get into the matches then. Sean, I want to start with you, and we'll run through sort of two games at once. We'll talk about two, then we'll go down to the other guys. So the first game I want to bring up is Ireland up against Canada, and I just want to check. I am looking at the men's draw. So Ireland up against Canada, and here we got Ireland -5.5.
Yeah, I think I fancy Ireland there. I think that's a good. They're coming in. They've still got the new. Just coming to the series. They've got a new vigor. They've got. They're really committed. They playing inspired stuff. That Jordan Conroy, he's probably one of the fastest players on the series, and they just like the way they play. And I think they'll just be a bit on the up. We saw in Cape Town that they start tournaments well. It's that third game. That where they get a bit sticky. Experience comes. Tired legs, and that's where experience on the circuit comes into play. But first game, you've got to take Ireland for me.
Right, and the next game, Sean, is France up against Spain, and here we got -17.5 France. I'm looking. I mean, I'm assuming a few of the bookies are priced up. I'm on World Sports Betting. That's WSB.coza for those who do want to check these prices. 17.5, Sean.
Yeah, that's quite high. That's just a little bit high there. I would leave that one alone, or maybe look at Spain there. I just think that's 4 points too high.
Right, guys, take us through those opening two games, the Irish and the French games.
Yeah, it was tough for us because Ireland have been playing such good rugby and been winning us a lot of handicaps as of late. But for some reason, I think the Canucks have just got so much experience here. As Sean said, the experience normally comes in the third game, but they've also got 2 player returns through Andrew Koo, and who else was returning there? I think Lucas Hammond as well. So I don't know. I think it's one of those games that could go either way, and it could be a 2 points or 5 points in it. So although I think Ireland could win, I think it's going to be a 1-scoring play. So for me, I'd rather be on the plus side there. So for me, it's a bit of a coin toss.
Yeah, I mean, as great as the rugby Ireland have been playing, I'm the biggest Ireland advocate in the 7's, and I've been jumping on all of their outrights and pluses. But yeah, Canada don't like to lose by too many, and they've been keeping it close. And they have had a run of tough games where they've basically been playing Fiji, New Zealand, game Argentina. So I mean, and I think that maybe this might be their week to turn it around. But yeah, let's see. And then, in the France-Spain game, look, what we were thinking is that, I mean, France, the group, I think it's probably the second toughest group, the one with France, Ireland, Canada. You never know with, who can do what in that type of group. So we thought that France might target this game against Spain, just to, get some security just in case they have a little slip up, against Ireland or Canada. So I think they might target this one. And the Spanish coach is also quoted saying last week that their goal is to get as far away from Wales as possible. So I think they're gonna make sure they know which games they can win, and I think they know they can't beat France. And for me, France know they can hammer Spain, and for me that logic leads towards a minus, especially on this new pitch in Hamilton. Fast new pitch in Hamilton.
So I was reading about that new pitch that we could. I don't know if it was you guys or someone putting it on the forum. I think about the fact that we could get some running rugby there. Guys, we'll stay with you then for the next 2 games. Kenya up against England. Kenya here plus 6.5.
I think Kenya at plus 7.5 would have absolutely grabbed it up and put it in the basket. England have a pretty weak side this tournament, still missing some big names there. So we are still a fan of the plus 6.5 with the pretty decent confidence. Would have loved a 7.5 to find it somewhere on one of those bizarre bookmakers like ESPN or something like that, but I think we're going to have to settle for the plus 6.5, and we still like it.
Also with Collins and Jura back, and also England down without De Carpentier, Glover, and a couple others to mention. I like the Kenyans and potentially even on an outright. But yeah, I think we're happy with the plus 6.5 there.
Right, and then guys, it goes on to South Africa against Japan. Blitzbox, you'd expect to get a big win here, but the handicap is high, 35.5 points. Yeah. What's that? They need to score like 8 tries or something.
It's extremely high. It's probably about 6 tries, considering how good our kicking is. Although we've had some arguments on, or listened to you guys talk about South Africa's kicking on the previous show. I think it was in Cape Town, and then Geduld went to go slot 7 from the corner. But anyway. It depends what team Japan send out. And honestly, we haven't been able to find any Japanese team news. So if you guys have anything, we're very interested to hear. But if Japan can produce a half-decent side, considering they sent a horrific side to Cape Town, a sacrificial lamb type side, we're pretty keen on the plus 35 or plus 34, whatever it is. But obviously, this was all dependent on team news, and we found absolutely nothing on Japan.
Yeah, I've been on Twitter sending personal messages to the Japan 7's players asking what the team is for the weekend, but there's absolutely no information you can find. So, yeah.
You guys remind me of myself when I was younger, trying to find out. Now I've got kids and that. Geez, you don't have time to do all of this stuff anymore. But Sean, I know you got kids, but you still somehow find the time. Take us through these games, the Kenya game and the South Africa game.
Okay, well, the first one, I mean, England, they get Rodwell back, not Rodwell, they get Tom Mitchell back. He's back, which is quite a big thing for them. But the major thing is that Simon Amor, their coach, he was the head of the 7's for both the men and the women. He's actually been left, and he's gone on to Eddie Jones. I think he's the assistant manager for Eddie Jones. So that's quite a big thing on their side, losing their coach. I think Rodwell's going to take over. And, he was a great player, had a lot of guts, but I'm not too sure of him as a coach. So that's going to be interesting to see what how England play and how that affects them, really. And then you've got Kenya on the other side, who I think that they one of the favorites. If you're not I think they get more fans from the other countries because of the way they play. They just got passion, they just believe, the fans always jumping up and down. So they're a great side to watch. I think Kenya can actually beat England on day one. I think that they're going to target that, and I think that's upsets on the cards for the best all the games. That's the biggest upset potential for me.
And then if you go to the South Africa-Japan game, I saw you nodding quite a bit when the guys were talking about the handicap. I know Henrik was, I think, saying that he thought the handicap looked a bit high for that game against Japan.
Yeah, it is high. I mean, you look at South Africa; they've lost half their squad. If they lost Ronald, they had Sage, Sanatla, Speckman's the best. He's been the impact player of the whole season. So and he's out. So they're basically half the side that was in the first two series. So I think you're looking at then they're just being overvalued. As such, I just think that should be under 35. If it's minus 34, then you start thinking, okay, wait a second. But the 35, it's too high for me. So also depending on what Japan team they select, but I'd be on them definitely. But looking at Japan, I just read something that they targeting the Tokyo Olympics. I think they're starting now with their preparation for the Tokyo Olympics. I think they looked at the first two tournaments. It was after the World Cup in Japan. They thought, let's give everyone a rest, and then we'll start in the new year. And we'll gear up to Tokyo 2020. So I think I'm hoping that they name a better side. They can't possibly name a worse side. So, you've got to think that they'd keep it under 35 against South Africa.
Okay, excellent. Rugabugger, we'll stay with you then for the next group of matches. Argentina plus 5.5 against Australia. It's a big one, this.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, you can, Argentina are the mongrels of 7's. I mean, they play horrible rugby. They spoil everything. They're not nice to watch, but they get the job done. And if you look at the head-to-heads between the sides, they seem to take one side win, one side loses. They go 1-1. That's how it seems to be. So it's always pretty close. And I think that I'd be looking at the plus on that. I just think, if it was 7.5, I'd be all over it. But the 5.5, I'm happy with that as well.
Right, and then the other game there, Fiji up against Samoa. Fiji, I've always considered quite slow starters, and that will probably have to change a bit now, given the format. But they've minus 14.5 against Samoan side, Sean, that I suppose hasn't really been at their best over the last probably 4 or 5 years, but has shown a little bit in recent times to suggest they're capable of causing an upset. Yeah,
this is a tough. These sides, this is like a derby match as such. I mean, these are rivals. They're next to each other. The 7's win. Samoa won at their peak. Fiji always gave them a good game, and it seems to always be tighter than it should. And I think this 2 tries, I think that's too high. I think this will be settled by between 10 and 14 points. So I think you've got to back Samoa. Yeah, they're getting some experienced players back, and they did look. They showed glimpses of what they can do. That Joe Perez is brilliant. But in saying that, Fiji are Fiji. So but they are slow starters. I would lean Samoa on this one.
Right, Samoa on the plus there, leaning in that direction, which means Sean's not exactly flying into that one. Son of a punt, what do you think of those 2 games, the Argentina and Fiji matches?
So for the Australia one, they've just sent in such a strong team. They've got Maurice Longbottom back, Ben O'Donnell. They got Captain Malouf back as well. So they've got some big names returning to the side. I agree with Sean, though, that Argentina love to stick around, and they often somehow manage to get the job done. So I think in round 2 and 3 will be strong Argentina plus advocates, just due to the fact they were bottom outright for the pool. So we should be expecting a plus against Samoa and Fiji, and I'll jump on those Argentina pluses. But for me, with this Australian team and trying to come back out firing after a poor tournament in Cape Town, probably going to be on the minus 5.5 for the Australian game.
Yeah, although Argentina's squad is very strong, and they bring the same. They basically got the same squad as they had in Dubai and Cape Town, and obviously they love to keep it close. It's going to probably be a small bet on the Australia minus. I think also probably their time to return to their winning ways after a poor Cape Town tournament. And then what's the other game?
Fiji Samoa.
Yeah, and then Fiji Samoa. Yeah. Look, I think Samoa have got some big players back.
Masanga,
Lulia. Yeah, Sione. And I think we read an article that said they've been working very hard on their discipline. So I don't know what that means for Samoan, but hopefully it means they can go a game without getting a yellow card. And I think if they can do that, they should be able. I've seen 15 and 16.5 around. So I think we firmly in the plus there. As good as Fiji are, I think they know they'll take their 3 wins and move to the semi-finals.
Yeah, just on that Samoa thing as well. I mean, they had that measles outbreak, which was quite hectic. The first two tournaments that came out, the first one, and then you saw all the Samoans. They really geared up for that first tournament, but then the second one, it kind of caught up with them, and they weren't just there. You could see that obviously they were worried about a lot of people back home. So I think that's all been cleared up, and I think that they're gonna, come back. And Gordon Titchen's best coach that's ever graced the Sevens circuit. He's had them since, they said that they trained extremely hard over the festive season. So I think that he's got them, on the discipline side. I think he knows that the Samoans, the Fijians, they're yellow card, merchants basically. And if he can stamp that out, then they could be a lot more competitive. So I think that they'll keep this tight with Fiji all the way.
Sean, a general comment here before we go into the last two games. Listening to both of you guys, I know you often come out very, very bullish on some of these early Sevens lines. But I'm getting the feeling that the bookies are not far off the mark on a lot of these. So far, we'll talk about the last group, but there's nothing that's standing out that is empty out.
Nothing yet, which is quite sad. But you got to.
When you said nothing yet, I thought you meant it's coming in the next two games. But
yeah.
No, I saw that early.
Sorry.
So yeah, that early stuff. I mean, there was for New Zealand Wales. I saw that some of the overseas ones was 27 points, that would have been great, but I see it's 33 now this side. So there's, I think, everything opened and then settled quite quickly. So
yeah, and the South African bookmakers seem very scared at the moment. I mean, they're almost too scared to bring out their own markets and try and show us that they can create markets themselves. So they wait for probably Bet365, and then they go and copy paste Bet365's markets and points. And I'm fine if they want to do that, they can do that, but it's no fun for us here. It doesn't leave us with any, I think Bet365 priced them very well. Let's say that. And I think some tough ones to call.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and guys, fair to say then, I mean, sometimes the opportunities in Sevens then come in between rounds where there isn't a lot of time, where the bookies have to price up. You maybe a quick turnaround time. And that's where you've got to be alert and onto it. And assuming we're not finding any massive prices this round, would you guys be following that strategy and trying to see where the big handicaps or the big plays are in the other rounds?
Yeah. We're going to add there at some point in the show that the first round's been priced extremely well, and we're actually looking at some value in the second round. We capped a couple of the games ourselves, and we almost have a trigger for any market in that region that we're going to pounce on. So we can maybe discuss those after.
The only tough thing is that it's going to be tough to do when you 10 gears down at 4:30 and 3:30 in the morning, and then you're not thinking in the correct state of mind, and so it's not easy.
Sounds a bit like my poker evening I played last night. I can tell you that. It's been a bit of a rough day today. But let's go on to the last group of matches, and Sun Number Punt will start off with you guys. Scotland up against the USA, plus 11.5. And the second game, I'll just say, is New Zealand up against Wales, another big handicap at minus 33.5.
Yeah, so we saw Scotland USA at 14.5 yesterday. Oh, sorry, when it came out maybe this morning. And on that, I mean, Scotland have a pretty decent team, and they've been really improving a lot in the first two tournaments. They've been up there in the restarts and up there in tackles and line breaks and stuff like that. So they're definitely a team not to discount. They've covered a lot of caps, and they've been irritating and nuggety. But in saying that, USA have got Josefo back, they've got Ben Pinkelman back, and I think these two guys will really bring some stability to USA side that really needed it. They're still missing Folau Nia, who is an incredible playmaker. So at 11.5, we're probably interested in the minus. At 14.5, we were interested in the plus. But I suppose these are the small intricacies of sevens.
Yeah, it's another extremely well-set handicap from the bookmakers. 14.5 probably hits it nail on the head there. We would have pounced on a minus 11.5 with two scoring players.
I think minus 11.5 is available now.
But minus 11.5 available now.
Yeah, so it's probably something we would look. I think at minus 11.5, we're on the minus cap.
Yes. And that's the thing with sevens. I mean, it can be those small margins, particularly given, I know Sean often says as well, often the difference between 6.5 and 7.5, with the fact that although South Africa can bang them over, conversions are not scored quite as frequently maybe as they are in the 15-man game. So you're at the moment leaning on the 11.5 there, and then the next game, well, it's a big one, another big one like the South Africa handicap, minus 33.5 New Zealand.
Yeah, no, it's massive. It's extremely massive. When we capped the games ourselves, we thought it was going to come out at 26.5. And chatting to Sean on Twitter, he said he would have pounced on that. Also gave us the reassurance with New Zealand at home. Extremely well played side. One of my favorite players back, Karoy. I think he's an incredible playmaker, but he does new stub parted ways. So it's a player gone missing as well. 33.5. It's one of those things that could end 45, could end 47, and it's hit on the head again. But Wales are playing horrific rugby at the moment, and they haven't done much to change their squad either. I see Luke Trahane's even stepped down as captain.
I don't know if he stepped down. He's not captain this week. So Roach is captain, and he'll captain next weekend in Sydney. I don't know if that's a way of weaning him out. I mean, I thought he was about 35, and then I went and Googled him, and he's only 29. Although it seems like he's been there forever. But that Wales team it's piss poor. So if we had to choose, I'd go the New Zealand minus, and we probably will take the New Zealand minus at home in good conditions on that new turf that's just been blessed, according to the New Zealand Herald. So yeah, I think the minus is probably the play.
And Sean, I mean, it's a lot of people have Googled my age thinking I'm in my 20s, and they're quite surprised to find out I'm not.
I was one of them, Prince. I was one of them.
Okay, guys, so, we want to talk a little bit of European rugby, but let's wrap up the sevens then. Sean, I'll give you your final thoughts. Perhaps if you do have, I think you guys, it's actually incredible how I can see you guys have sort of done the same work, and you're coming to the same conclusions that these lines have been well set. But if you had to pick probably you could say one that you'd back with the most confidence, Sean, in this first round of matches.
We'll get to that now. Just on what the guys have said, I agree with them on America. At that and.
Oh, sorry, I hadn't asked you that. I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the USA. I think that's just looking at the Scotland side. I don't see Farndale in there. I don't see who else is also the Rydell's not there. They've got Ferguson. They've got Lowe, but other than that, they don't have. Not a great player. It doesn't look like like a fantastic Scotland side. They've got a Paddy Kelly's, former under-20 player makes his debut. So there's nothing, great with that. And then America, I mean, they were second last year, the USA. So they're gonna have to, they have to do it. They have to get out of the pool. They have to. For the problem with this one now is if you're not in the Cup semi-finals, then you're not going to be seeded in the top four, in the next tournament. So it's just the USA are in a horrible place where they've got to do something drastic to get those seedings and get good pools, and then obviously build on something and get to the heights they got last year. So I think they have to target this game massively, and this has got to be a statement game for them. So I think this is one of the best ones on day one. Would be the USA.
And I see Brendan Vessel's the conductor. He's not on the show tonight, but he's watching, and he says USA surely the value. So agreeing with you there. Sean, just quickly to touch on, I didn't realize that this format that we're having here for the Hamilton Sevens, is this now the way going forward till the end of the round, or to the end of the series?
They try to incorporate, so the men's and the women's are, the reason it's happening is so they're incorporating more women's series with the men's series. But I think that the Hamilton is going to be one where it's like this, where there's only semi-finals. And next week in Sydney is the same issue because of the women. But then the following two, I think it's Vancouver and Vegas, and it's the Canada and Vancouver and LA. Those two are going to be normal back to the usual sevens that we were used to last year. So it's just these two, and I think there's another two, London and Paris. If I'm saying to be corrected, but there's only there's 4 tournaments left that are going to be like this. The others will be back to normal. So yeah, but with these ones, it's gonna the guys have got to go, especially if you're not a top ranked side. Like that's why I fancy the USA because they're not the best in their pool, in terms of the ranking. So they have to fire. They have to come out, all guns blazing. Hopefully, they got New Zealand, their second game, so they want to go into that knowing that if they can sneak a draw, or keep it close, or just do something, that they might have a chance. But if they bomb out against Scotland first game, that's them done basically.
Yeah, interesting to see what the mindset is. Son of a punt from you guys. A little wrap up of this first round of matches. Best bet.
It's tough to say. I think we in firm agreeing with I thought it was minus 14.5 for USA, so that's why I wasn't too sold on it. But at minus 11.5, it's an absolute minus. Perry Baker, Colin Oz, that Scotland don't have many fast players, so that the ball's going to be put down under the sticks, and Madison Hughes is going to pop it over. So minus 11.5 is probably my best bet then, agreeing with Sean.
Yeah.
About Jordan.
Well, I just have to consult the genie pot over here. What's he saying to me? I think the genie pot probably agrees on the minus 11, but what is the other one? The
Canada, I like.
Yeah, the Canada plus is probably also quite good. I like it, but as we've said, there's been nothing that's really screamed at us as like an outright mispricing. But actually, Canada, USA at minus 11 is pretty good.
Yeah, and also sad. Japan, just check the Japanese team selection. If you can recognize any of the players, then then back them against 7. I just can't see South Africa going too big on that first game. I think they're going to be 3 wins and then get into the semi-final. Keep but in the legs, but in the tank.
So the Japan 7's team actually posted a photo of the squad, but I only know the names. I can't really put a face to the name there, so couldn't really identify whether it was a strong squad or a weak squad.
Now, I saw that there's a 22-year-old Samoan that's made their side, so I mean that should be interesting. So let's see.
I was going to say, normally in a Japanese team, you don't actually recognize many Japanese names either, because particularly they're 15 man. But guys, you I know I've seen on Twitter you do play the total points markets in the 7's quite a lot as well. Now, I mean, I don't know if they're out yet, the lines. I haven't had a look. I see there are quite a few markets out. But do you think this new pitch, I mean, are you looking for an edge to try and maybe take advantage of perhaps the bookies early on here? Have you got any thoughts on points?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to my initial statement on the new pitch and the good weather for the weekend, although Hamilton is usually the lowest scoring leg of the 7 series on average over the last 4 seasons, I do think that this leg will be different. I think it will be a relatively high scoring 7's, especially considering it's a more condensed tournament, fewer games, and that the team that comes second, obviously benefits, between that 5th and 7th position, there's a huge difference. So obviously you want to be getting as many points, especially if you're a best second. So yeah, I do think there is going to be some value in the points. We've had a look at some of the lines, and most of them are pretty high. One that stands out potentially is Kenya-England at 35.5. However, you can never rely on a Kenyan to convert a kick, even if he's in front of the poles. So there you've got to rely on a decent number of tries in the match. Otherwise, they're all priced pretty high. They're closer to the 40-point mark than the 36-point mark, if we can say it like that. And there are a few outrageously high ones like New Zealand Wales at 47.5. So you could kind of, in my head, I was thinking about maybe creating a middle line with like a New Zealand minus 33 or whatever's available, and then an under 47.5 points, and then you kind of hope that New Zealand win the game 40-0, or you can afford or if Wales score a try and then New Zealand don't win the cap, then at least you win one, lose one.
Yeah, it sounds like something I've done in the past as well, guys. It doesn't end happily. I don't think you must do that. But I hear you 100%. And, once again, from what you're telling me, the bookies have done their homework here. The fact that they have priced up quite high on a tournament which is traditionally low scoring, they've obviously done their homework on the pitch and stuff as well. Anyway, guys, we're going to have some great 7's. Just quickly before we talk a bit of Europe, anything on the ladies' game? Do you guys, son of a punt, follow the ladies' tournament at all?
Geez, we actually haven't. Maybe we had a look at the women's 7's in Cape Town and Dubai, but we've been traveling a bit here. We were actually in Marrakesh last week, so when we're in the desert, when we've been looking for signal, we've been focusing on the men's games. So we haven't actually put much research into the women's games, unfortunately. But I think I heard that the Oracle is an expert in it, so I'll be waiting for his tips.
I think that's the reason the Oracle's gone into hiding. I'll never forget that first show we did where he told us what? Sean, you'll remember the game.
England to beat Australia.
He said they had the wrong play. It was 17.5 points.
20 points.
I think he was 25 points wrong in terms of an entire swing. It was great. But I did see someone post on the forum that the women's only have 3 groups, and that the team that comes best second will qualify for the Women's Cup semi-finals. So in saying that, it could be, you could be looking at a team to try and really try and destroy the minnows in the women's 7's, but obviously it's not really something that I know too much about. And if people do post on the forum, I might look to follow if it makes logical sense. But we haven't really looked too much into the women's.
Well, I've got to say, I hope we do have the Oracle back for Super Rugby, because he's great value, even from an entertainment point of view. And when he does hit a run, well, he can put together some nice bets as well. Guys, let's talk a little bit about Europe. We don't have to spend too much time on it, because I'm sure most of your focus is going to be on the 7's. But son of a punt, I'll start off with you guys. We've got the Pro 14 game between the Cheetahs and the Kings, so perhaps let's chat about that. I haven't actually looked recently at the handicap. Did I see it was about 8.5? Somewhere around there. Have you seen it?
9.5, yeah.
9.5.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on that one?
Well, I think my thoughts with the Cheetahs, I mean, there's only ever one thought you can ever have with the Cheetahs, and that rhymes with Joseph Dweba, and it rhymes with any time and first try scorer and double try scorer and hat-trick try scorer. So, no jokes, but I think Joseph Dweba anytime will probably be my bet, just because I love the man. Kings, I saw they beat the Stormers last week, which was a shock, although it looked like a relatively second-string Stormer side, except with a couple Springboks in the front row, which is a bit concerning. Maybe they've had a bit of a long celebration, but they deserve it, I suppose. But yeah, I won't be touching that handicap. Kings cover that handicap against the Cheetahs at home more often than not. It's just scary to bet on the Kings.
That's a very good point. I mean, I think, Sean, I see you nodding there as well. I like the Kings, and I've actually been quite impressed with them. Even though they were hammered the one game in Europe big time, but they were down to 14 men. And they actually played, it sounds ridiculous, but they played fairly well. And I haven't been impressed by the Cheetahs, so I like the Kings on the handicap. But I think that's actually a good statement. It's very nerve-wracking to, you can't really go in on the Kings with any degree of confidence.
No, the King backing the Kings is like going against New Zealand. You might be in it for 79 minutes, but you could be 20 points out in the last 3 minutes. They could just find, they could do that. The Kings defense could just fall asleep. They could do crazy things, intercept, or they could do bizarre stuff. So totally agree. That's a great statement. The Kings, it's generally quite close between the sides. Local, Cheetahs have had to travel. It's watch this for me.
Yeah, you gonna watch it? Would you waste your time?
I'm not just if I might not even watch it, but I can't with any confidence say back the Kings.
I must say it's true what you guys say, because I can't remember the last time I watched a game without actually having a bet on it. It's you either bet on it, you watch it, or you don't watch it at all.
Yeah.
But there's a few other games then taking place in Europe. Son of a punt. Does anything catch your eye there? I mean, there's only the one Pro 14 game, but there's a few other things scattered around. Have you found any good bets?
We kind of both enjoyed Bath at the Rec against Leicester, -5.5. Of course, Leicester have a ridiculous backline with Johnny May, George Ford and the likes, but Bath, I think the forwards will be able to dominate up front. And as much as the fans like to believe, the game is won in the forwards. So I think with and the other forwards dominating proceedings at the Rec, going to dominate a set piece, I think the -5.5 could come through. At the end of the day, it's just 2 penalties. So if they're going to win, it's probably going to clear the cap. So I kind of enjoyed the -5.5. Elsewhere, looked at Bristol Gloucester. I saw the cap was only -2.5. Bristol obviously need to bounce back. So kind of enjoyed the -2.5 there for Bristol. And it's at home as well. So that was my 2 punts for the day, for the Premiership that I liked the most.
Yeah, but in saying that, to be honest, we haven't really seen team news, and we're not sure if the England internationals are going to be with the Six Nations squad or not. Already. If they're not, then I also like Saints at home, the -13. As we say, Saints have cleared most of their caps, and we back them to continue. But yeah, I can't really say I've got a real feel for Exeter, Sale, or Worcester Wasps, especially Worcester Wasps. I've absolutely no idea. I like Exeter. They're a savage side, particularly at home. But again, this depends on how many internationals they have available this weekend, which I actually don't know about.
I think the England team, actually, I think they've gone. I think the England internationals are, they've gone to the side. I think all of them except the Scots. So a lot of the English players, Saints, Saracens, especially that Saracens Harlequins will be an interesting game. With all the news with Saracens in the week or with relegation. I'm sure if I was a Quins fan, I'd be singing, to the way in the whole game about how, Saracens are going down. It'd be actually quite a fun day out. So I think that's Harlequins have got to be, they should win that just based on where the two sides are.
Brendan Vessel saying he thinks Leicester's internationals are in camp, so that's agreed. And I also saw that the Scottish, I think it might even have been on the forum, I saw that the Scottish guys might be available. But Sean, anything for you then in Europe? I know you're all about the sevens this weekend.
No, nothing for me. I can't say anything confidence. I think the America against Scotland, that's a cracker.
Excellent. Well, Brendan Vessels, we know you love your European rugby. Perhaps just if you got a chance, post your best bet there in the comments now. But that brings us to the end of the show. I think Gary Lenton said on the previous show, a bit of a lull before the storm. Fortunately for you boys, it's not a lull because you love the Sevens so much, and I no doubt you'll be late nights watching that. But next week is going to be absolutely huge when we got Super Rugby, Six Nations. I mean, then let's even talk other sports. The Sun Met, we got all sorts of sport going on next week. So, son of a punt, let me just ask you closing thoughts on the Super Rugby. Any long-term bets that you've got involved with yet?
No, we haven't got involved in any Super Rugby yet. We've actually been watching the show and seen Heinrich's comments and the other boys there. So we're going to probably follow a couple of their punts. I think they had some good points and analysed the squads extremely well. So we've kind of put our focus into the 7's mainly because we had limited time this weekend. And just to touch on this, we actually haven't had, apart from the USA, too much value to add or like to pounce on. So looking forward to the Oaks that are going to stay awake for the second round of matches, and when the caps come available, we capped 3 games that could potentially be good to pounce on. First of all,
Okay.
SA versus England. We're hoping the cap will come around at 9, 10 or 11.5, minus 9, 10 or 11.5, which we would get all over. That would probably be one of our favourite bets for the round, on the minus for the Blitzboker. And then the second game would obviously be the Fiji versus Australia. Australia tend to always make their hits against Fiji, good defense. So if that cap comes out of over 10, so probably 12 and above, we'll take the Australia plus maybe even at the 11. I think that's great value there as well. And then lastly, with Scotland versus Wales, depending on what the cap comes out there, as we said, Wales are useless. Scotland actually do have 2 great players. I can't pronounce his surname, but one Sam Pico, and the other one I can't pronounce his first name. It's Femi something or other. So it's 2 sprinters that and McFarlane. So it's 2 sprinters that can really do the job there. So if the Scotland-Wales comes out of 2 scoring players, so around 9 or 10, we'd be on that as well. So I think the real value for the 7's actually lands in the second round of matches, and that's where we're going to be investing the majority of our money, I think.
And Sean, you listening to their caps there, their cap predictions?
Yeah, I'll just go through them.
If those caps come out, were they expecting it?
Just looking at the first one, what was it? South Africa, England. The average handicap's about being minus 6.5 to South Africa, which would be great. But the last one was minus 9.5. So I think they would, depending on those first games, depending on how, I personally think Kenya are going to beat England in the first match. So I think that you might get a minus 12.5, minus 14.5 on that even, just depending on how things go. I think England are going to be blown off the first game. Personally, and then the next one was Fiji, Australia. I agree with that totally. That's the average is normally about 10.5 there. The last one was 7.5, but depending on how you just don't know how they're going to price up based on Fiji, Samoa. If it goes to a tight game, which we're expecting, then hopefully it's it's almost a contradiction there, because you want the bigger plus for Australia, but you want Samoa to keep it tight. So it's a tough one. So if Fiji blows Samoa out the water, then you might get a good handicap on Australia. And then the last one, totally agree. If that's minus, I'd even say minus 11.5 on Scotland Wales. I'd look at that. So the last result was 33-7 to Scotland. They seem to have Wales's number. The average score, they beat them by 12 points. So yeah, I think that's one of the better ones. If that's a single digit, then what's that? That's at a decent time. So therefore that's 9 o'clock. So wake up while you're having your cornflakes, just check if that's under 10 and then strike that.
There's one other that actually stands out for me. Sorry, just to mention it. It's the Argentina Samoa. So based on the current odds on who's going to win the pool, Argentina are actually last favourites, which I was shocked and disturbed by. So they're at about 21 and Samoa at, let's say, 16. So if I can get Argentina plus 3 against Samoa and Argentina at odds of 2.8 or something like that against Samoa, best believe I will be lumping heavily into that.
Yeah, that's
it seems like
according
to the odds, it looks like Argentina will be underdogs.
Yeah, I would make Argentina, if I had to price that up now, I'd say minus 7.5 Argentina. Just off the bat. So if you get anything totally good,
the pool winners, and you see Argentina are the least favourite. So I mean, based on that, it looks like it might price up like that. So if it does, then it's a gift. If not, I don't know.
We can hope. I just see Brendan's on Quadzilla. Unfortunately, I don't think he's made the Australian team. I don't know if the guys will just check. I haven't seen his name with the Aussie side, so I think he went in and out of that team as faster than under 10 seconds. So that didn't last long.
Yeah, also haven't seen his name on the team sheet. He was pretty non-existent in both legs that he took part in.
Just his 2 legs that he's got on his body.
Excellent guy. Yeah, I must say that I heard all the hype about him, but I don't think I actually saw him play in the first two matches. I didn't watch all of it there. But thanks a lot, guys. Some interesting bets coming up this weekend. We are looking forward, of course, to next weekend as well. But good on you. Just to mention your Twitter handle there, Son of a Punt, where the guys can follow you. It's son _a_punt. Am I right?
Yes.
Excellent. So you can look out for that. And Sean Nicholas, at Sean Nicholas, a nice easy one. But you've also got an underscore in your name there, Sean.
Do I? Yeah, I started the underscore. You know, mate, it's popular now. These extra trying.
You made it fashionable. Excellent, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks. I just quickly I must bring up this live comment because Brendan O'Connell joining us in the live chat. He's probably in Dubai at the moment. He flies around the world all the time, a pilot. So good to have you on the show, Brendan. And thanks a lot for the guys in the live chat for watching. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Son of a Punt. Guys, it's been great. Hope you make lots of money and look forward to following you throughout the Hamilton Sevens.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.
Guys.